All right. Welcome, everybody, to another fearless and free conversation. Here we go. Hello. Welcome, everybody, to another fearless conversation with Jiva Salerno. We are live here. We're going to have an exciting conversation tonight about wellness and the role of wellness in becoming fearless. So, super exciting. I am so excited to have this conversation with you tonight. I'm Jiva Salerno, and I'm the founder of Over 40 Fearless and Free, an international women's movement of over 11,000 members worldwide. And if you're watching us, you can find us on Facebook. I'm a writer living in Southwest Florida, and I believe that women over 40 can live happy, juicy, fulfilling lives. I'm interested in the intersection of science, spirituality, and psychology, mostly personal growth. And I'm also a lifelong learner with degrees in biochemistry and international policy. I am excited to share with you that Over 40 Fearless and Free is working to change the world by helping women become happier. We inspire women over 40 to recognize their value, power, and potential. So connect with us, become a member. And I'm also excited to share with you tonight one of our amazing members. This is Christie Ryan Varburg. And Christie is the famous Christie of Christie Ryan Fitness. Christie is a health and wellness professional. She's a coach who grew up in Kansas, and she is a registered nurse who specializes in helping women over 40 to lose weight, become more confident, and more fearless. And she is going to share with us tonight some tips about how to do that. So get ready for an exciting conversation about the connection between wellness and fearlessness. So exciting. So welcome, Christie. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Christie, did I miss anything in the introduction?
I don't think so.
Excellent. So, Christie, you are out in Kansas, one of the most beautiful places in the country, the land of the sunflowers.
Right.
Can you share with us a little bit about how you became a nurse, first of all, and how being a nurse really informs the way you would view wellness in general? Because as we were talking about before, we were kind of just started to talk about how your past as a nurse was on one side of the equation in a way with health and dealing with illness, and now you're on the other side of the equation. So lots of questions for you all wrapped up in one there.
That's good. So I graduated from high school in 78. So in the mid 70s, when people are kind of thinking about their career, I hadn't thought about it. I just was going to finish high school and maybe get married, and I really didn't know. And our high school counselor came into our sophomore class and said, all right, who's planning to go to college? Well, my family, none of my older siblings had gone to college. And so everybody sat there and he goes, every one of you women need to find a career and plan to go to college. And that was kind of the first thing first time I'd ever thought about that. But as a summer job, I had taken care of a woman who had juvenile arthritis and was stuck in a wheelchair. And I loved it. And so I thought, I like taking care of people. I guess I'll be a nurse. And so it was kind of like, boop. But as I went through nursing school, I was just so fascinated with the human body and our potential and how it works and how everything just seamlessly works together if it is taken care of and supposed to work like that. But I was just amazed at that. And so started out working intensive care, which is where a lot of things go wrong with that perfect little machine that we have. And worked there for a lot of years. And it was a general intensive care, so it was surgical, medical, cardiac, accidents, everything, and I really did enjoy that. I like taking care of people, but I was presented with the opportunity to take over the hospital's wellness program. And, I had never thought about doing that as a profession, but because I loved the way the human body worked and in my own personal life, taking care of myself was important. And so it was like, okay, I'm open to this, and loved that just as well, because when people would come in, it was so much more. Um, it was taking care of people so much more than just helping them with their nutrition and exercise. It was dealing with their mindset. It was dealing with their confidence. It was dealing with how they approached life, the things they felt comfortable doing, the things they didn't, what held them back. So it was really what I saw in nursing, a total person experience where I was able to take care of the total person.
Yeah, the two things about that. One thing that I really like about your story is that you started out by kind of listening to yourself. You listened to that voice that said, I like taking care of people. This feels good.
Mm-hmm.
You had helped one person. I like this. Let me see how I can build on this.
Right.
And especially for like our listeners, women out there who are feeling stuck and feeling like they want to make a change in their lives, that this is really an important thing, is to listen to that voice that tells you, I kind of like this. What can I do with this? Let me see what I can do with this. And it served you well, right? Because you kept listening.
Yes. And, another part of that listening was when the hospital got rid of my position and I lost my job, I was at a point where, do I go back to ICU? And the only thing they had available was nights, PRN. I had two little kids. And it was like, that won't work, being called at 10 o'clock at night and saying you need to come in. And it's like, I knew nothing about entrepreneurship, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to keep doing what I love and figure it out as I go. And that was terrifying.
So
And,
good.
I had it's funny how a lot of times when we're faced with an obstacle, we find the littlest things to hold us back, and so, my dad had said, well, you should just do this on your own. It's like, I don't have an office. I don't even have a scale. I don't have any of the, he's like, I think those are pretty easy to find,
That's so great. What great advice.
yeah. And so I just kind of took it a little bit at a time. And actually, becoming an entrepreneur helped me grow personally immensely, because I had to get into the personal development. I had to get into my own beliefs about what I was capable of, and, learning things I had never learned before, like technology and marketing and, those kind of things. And, it was amazing for me as an individual, my own individual growth, but then also getting into the whole personal development arena of reading and learning, and not just physically but spiritually and emotionally. And I think that has helped me become who I am today, just that learning process, my confidence,
Absolutely.
and like I said, when we start those new things, it's so overwhelming. When we start anything new, it's overwhelming, but as you do more and more, then you let go of the fear and become more confident and trust yourself, to take a step forward.
Share with us how you have integrated all of that into your coaching and working with clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, yeah, a lot of times when women come in, because they want to lose 20 pounds, they think it's about the pounds. They think it's all about the pounds, but it's also about, do they really think they're capable of structuring their life in a way where they're making healthy choices? Do they think that they are brave enough to say, I'm worth this to their family, and say, I need you to help with this so I have time for me? Or, we're going to start eating healthier. It comes down to,
Wow.
how brave are they to take a stand for themselves, and not
Well, it's so powerful.
and not always be giving, because women are givers. We have human giver syndrome, and we think that makes us a good person. And so if we don't give, who are we? And so helping
Gosh,
them realize
so
that in the
powerful.
process.
Yes, so we are talking about the connection between wellness and fearlessness right here. This is what it gets down to, is becoming fearless in the way that you're talking about. I mean, you have, like you said, you have to start speaking up for your needs and developing these boundaries around, this is what's may have worked in the past, family, but it's not going to work
Right.
for me. I'm not going to be eating this way anymore, or mom is going to be, not available 2 nights a week because I've got the spin class, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's like these personal growth changes are happening in your clients as they are working on the physical changes, right?
Exactly. And the courage that comes up, but also just being empowered by that, is one thing. Seeing that they're capable of that, and then also, because they're treating their bodies better with better nutrition, they feel different. Not just energy, not just because they have less weight, but their brain works better. I mean, everything kind of jives together, and they didn't expect that. And so, like I said, it's easy just to focus on the pounds, but it's what I have found in my whole profession. This is so much more than the pounds, and it just ties my nursing in perfectly, because it's a whole body thing.
Yes, that sounds like a powerful transition that you're helping women go through,
Mhm.
um, both emotionally, psychologically, physically. Um, do you ever find that there are blocks that you have to work on with them?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Part of it is that they don't have to be a superhero to everybody. Part of it is lack of belief in themselves, and, I was just talking to a woman this morning who felt like everything had to be spotless, taken care of, done at home and at work, or she felt like she was being lazy. So it's challenging those old beliefs we have about ourselves, that, oh my gosh, if a woman rests, she's lazy. And so, yeah, those are blocks, and that's not something that can be overcome easily just by someone saying, well, that's not true, don't be that way. It's digging deep and thinking, where did that belief come from? And I mean, sometimes it's beyond what I can help them with. Sometimes they need, a therapist to really dig in with them, but it gives them, I think, that little light bulb moment that, oh gosh, my life doesn't have to be, this way if I don't want it to be.
So when you first start working with a client, do you kind of look at what their goals are, to have, like, do an assessment with them to see where they're at and
Mhm.
see where they want to go, that kind of thing? What does that look like?
Yeah, we always talk about what their main goal is, what made them feel like they want to tackle that now. Usually it's a certain circumstance, whether they saw themselves in a holiday picture, or they were at the beach and they felt really uncomfortable, or they went on a vacation and couldn't keep up with the hike that their family was doing,
Hmm.
or afraid to get in the um, amusement park cars, or whatever. But usually there's some moment that comes, and there's a, this is it. I've got to do something. So we talk about that moment, but also why, and I think this is crucial, why they want to reach this goal. Okay, let's say they want to reach a number on the scale, or they want to lose a certain amount of weight. And like I said, it's more than the pounds. It always has to be more than the pounds, or they're not going to stick with it. So what is that? And a lot of times people will say, I just want to be healthy. Why? Well, because, and it might come down to, after some exploration, because my dad died when he was 49, or because, my mom was never available because she never had energy, and whatever, but it's usually something deeper that they want to avoid, that's going to get them motivated. And that's really important to touch on.
And then during the process, when you're working on all of this, do you remind them or bring them back to that?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Because it's easy to forget. It's easy to get frustrated, and I don't have time, and I didn't get any workout in this week, and I've been eating junk because my family brought home pizza, and then it's like, it's too hard. I'm not going to do this anymore, until we steer them back to, but this is going to come up again, this desire that you want. So how are you going to handle that? So yeah, it comes down to the energy or the health issues. And when we get to be this age, I'm 61, and it's not something we can put off much longer, because when we're young, we can say, oh, I can lose that weight later. But then it gets to the point where if we wait much longer, it's going to affect our health, and that's going to affect how we function and live.
Yeah. And I was just thinking that you are helping women over 40 with this weight loss. Can you talk a little bit about two of our favorite subjects when it comes to this, which is, how does hormones figure into all of this? And also, of course, menopause. So I'm giving you two.
Okay. And it's kind of, both of those tie together. Definitely our hormones change, around perimenopause or after 40. But a lot of the changes that we have after 40 is from just aging. Our muscles, we have muscle atrophy, our muscle mass decreases after about age 35. Every decade, we lose, 3 to 5% of our muscle mass. And our muscle is what keeps us stable. It what helps our energy, it helps our metabolism. And if we don't focus on developing that muscle back, then our metabolism tanks. And a lot of the changes that we notice, the extra weight, the difficulty in losing weight, that's also due to aging, not just hormones. The hormones come in where we put it more around our waist. When we do gain, it comes around our waist because our hormones are more leveled out like a man's, who gains that belly fat, and we don't put it on our hips and thighs anymore. We put it around our waist. But the main thing is that our metabolism has changed. And to get that back up, we need the right balance of nutrition and exercise. And, a lot of people try really severe things, really severe restrictive diets, or crazy hard, intense exercise, which messes up hormones even more.
Right.
And so it's finding that balance of good, healthy lifestyle to help with menopause and the hormone changes.
Oh, and I hate to make it personal, but I was thinking about something the other day related to this. And that is that when I was growing up, in my teens or 20s, I always had trouble sticking to either a diet or a fitness regime, because every month after like 3 weeks, I would suddenly have no energy because of my period coming. And I didn't connect it. But during that time, when I suddenly have no energy, I didn't want to do whatever it was, whether it was running or, going to yoga or the gym. And I would jump off the boat. And so I've never thought about it and realized that there was a connection with the hormones. I just thought that I was like undisciplined, or I was lazy or something.
Yeah.
And it's only recent that I've gotten into the hormones, that as a woman over 40, that I'm realizing, hey, that maybe that wasn't my fault so much. And
Right.
maybe I should have, maybe we all should recognize that that's happening. Well, it happens to some women.
Mhm.
Um, and if we know that our hormones are changing and it changes our energy levels, that if we can just stick it out through that week or let ourselves relax for a week and have the self-discipline to get back on it,
Mhm.
um, and give ourselves a break and forgive ourselves for not being perfect.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that?
No, you're exactly right. And there's even some research that shows that women should train differently during that week of their period because their energy, their metabolism, it's all different. And so Dr. Stacy Sims has some really good research on that about how, especially women athletes, should change how they train around that time of their cycle because it makes a huge difference, you know. But also, I think we have to be careful no matter what part of the cycle we're in, about the all or nothing mentality where we have to be perfect, we have to do it hard, we have to stay on track and be 100%, or we're not going to do it at all. And I think that's what throws women off a lot. It's like, wow, I couldn't do what I did last week, so I guess I won't do anything, but maybe change it up, give yourself a little flexibility so that you don't have to do it as hard, but you're still keeping those habits in place so that it's kind of a continuum.
But how great to have a coach by your side working with you through this process, and having somebody there to say, hey, it's okay. You don't have to give it all up just because you stumbled a little bit here. Let's change things up. We're going to do it a little differently this way, or it's okay.
Mhm.
So what a wonderful thing. What a wonderful service that you're providing to people. I'm sure that women love it.
Yeah, and it's a hard thing for them to understand that it's okay, like when
We're so
someone,
hard on ourselves.
we are, and when someone says, it's okay, okay, you had 2 or 3 days that you were totally off. And that's one thing that we really work on is how to get back after a relapse, how to mentally and physically do the things to get back on without beating ourselves up. But I think women sort of want to be beat up because we beat ourselves up. So we want someone else to say, you were terrible. How come you let that happen? You should be stronger. And when someone doesn't do that, it's like, really? It's okay? And so again, that's a whole mindset issue, but something they need to be coached through for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. Can you share with us either one of these, either some tips that you have or some stories, some success stories. We love those. Success
Mhm.
stories of clients that have achieved some wonderful results.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing this a long time, 30 years, and so 35 years. And, some women have been with me almost that whole time with some
Wow.
kind of check-in, follow-up. I just want to touch base. I just want to tweak things. But, one woman that I'm thinking of in particular, she started with me when she was in her 40s, probably 70 to 80 pounds overweight. Um, Over, the course of a few years, she got that down, not without struggle, because she had, some I don't want to say eating disorders, but some misguided beliefs about food, and that she needed to deal with. Beliefs about herself. She didn't feel comfortable necessarily losing much weight because she was afraid of getting attention from people, and so it was dealing with that. But fast forward, she does triathlons now. you
Mm.
know and so that was above and beyond my capability, but she just started feeling so much better. She became more confident. She felt empowered to start running and then to to decrease the impact, she started swimming, and she got some help with her stroke with swimming. She found it very meditative. She liked it, and then she added the biking, and then she, met up with a group that was saying, let's do some triathlons. And so it was just like most things, we just take it one step at a time and think, oh, that's cool. I think I'll look at that more, and so she's 68 now and running triathlons.
That's amazing.
Yeah, a comment
That
that,
is amazing.
she told me once was, because you believed in me and helped me love myself, that was one of the biggest factors that helped her continue, because she didn't trust herself. She didn't feel she was worth it, until she started working on herself and seeing some results. And then it was like, okay, so all of that process leads to fearlessness,
Sure
experience
does. Wow.
as we go,
So you saw this woman, I know it took a long time, but you saw this woman who started out actually quite fearful about her body, about losing the weight and getting attention on her body from, people, maybe the opposite sex, I don't know. Quite fearful to trying different things, seeing what she liked, doing different things little by little, to the point where she's almost a different person, I'm imagining.
She's a different person.
This person who is 68 and running triathlons, very active person, very courageous, very fearless, going after what she wants. And you have to be really quite strong-willed to do a triathlon. You have to be brave and assertive and
Disciplined.
gone from fearful and like closed down and holding on to the shell to like coming out of her shell and becoming fearless.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
That's
yeah,
amazing.
and her life is completely different. I mean, she feels good about herself. She loves herself, but she is very active with her grandkids. She can do anything, like, you want to go on a hike, grandma? Sure. And so she's just able to experience and enjoy life so much more.
That is amazing. I want to hear more stories. Does anybody else come to mind? These are all anonymous stories, people.
Right.
We have to keep it anonymous, but still.
Right. Yeah. I think one of the most fun transformations, again, was a woman in her 50s. And see, we assume that once we reach a certain age, we can't change, and we can, so this woman, loved her sweets. She really didn't like exercise so much. But she started making baby steps. She was overweight. She didn't feel good. She didn't, feel comfortable in her clothes. Her job was around the public. So she was in the public eye a lot. And so she just started making little changes, and what happens when you start making little changes is you start saying, I think what I see the most successful people do is start looking at food as, how can it help me nutritionally? How can I get value from it?
Absolutely.
Instead of, oh, I can't have that, and can't have that, and I have to eat chicken, they start saying, wow, what can I add that's going to give me some health benefits? And they go from the restrictive to the, what can I add? And this is going to help me, feel better. And this is going to help me age better. And anyway, she ended up, it took her a couple years, but she ended up losing 40 pounds, still enjoys her sweets in moderation, exercises in moderation, but just felt so happy and confident. And part of it's because, she's able to move more and feels better in her clothes, but a lot of it's because she saw herself accomplish something that she didn't think she could. And that leads to just feeling good about ourselves,
It was really the baby steps. And did they kind of snowball, would you say?
They snowballed in that they became easier, but it's not like she had to do a whole lot more. It was the little things that started adding up.
Okay.
And,
The cumulative.
Yeah.
The cumulative, the results that she was getting. Yeah.
And those
So
little things are easier to stick with than making huge changes all at once.
I have had an interesting experience lately that related to nutrition. I've always been interested in nutrition, and I ended up getting a degree in biochemistry, and my area of interest within that was nutrition. And over the years, I've made these small changes. Well, all right, a series of big changes, I guess. I went gluten-free,
Yeah.
and I cut out sugar at different times. And I was raised in kind of a hippie household and around a lot of open-minded people. And so I had tried a lot of vegan food, a lot of really healthy food, organic food. So all of a sudden I learned about the connection between trauma and gut health and
Ooh.
inflammation, and decided to go on an anti-inflammatory diet to try to work on my gut from the trauma issues. But the interesting thing about it is it was a challenge. That diet is so challenging. It's a hard diet, right?
Right.
But I found that it was not too difficult because I had already tried all those different things, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
came across a group for people who are on this diet, and I saw the comments in there that it was so incredibly hard for people who have not been exposed to this kind of food and vegan food and all the anti-inflammatory food. It is really a challenge for people if they are not used to thinking about things in a different way when it comes to food. If for someone who's brought up, in my mind, I'm imagining for someone who's brought up very narrowly and they've kind of stuck with the same food that and preparations and everything for their entire life, it can be a huge challenge to do one of these really different diets. Do you see that a lot in your practice, that people have just been really narrow?
Yeah. And a lot of people that have the hardest time is someone who grew up without structured meals, or they always had meat and potatoes and that was it, and so for them to eat more vegetables or to watch portion size and not have a half a plate of potatoes, is just such a foreign concept to them.
Right.
And so that's why it has to be baby steps. But I have seen people go from someone who grew up and I grew up on a farm. That's how we ate, meat and potatoes and whatever. But to go from that to adding more vegetables, loving vegetables, wanting more vegetables, and then starting to look at, wow, I've heard this causes inflammation. I think I'm going to, change this a little bit and see how I feel. Oh my gosh, I feel so different when I don't eat this. So it's taking those little steps, but they could never have gone from only eating meat and potatoes to this anti-inflammatory thing, but as they become more focused and in tune with their bodies over time, then it's easier to make those changes.
Yeah, and having a coach to help with that must be amazing,
Yeah.
because I really feel for these people in the group that I'm in, that I can't imagine how they're how they can do it alone. I
Yeah.
really, I can't even fathom it. So to have someone like you who is going to walk them through it and be there whenever they have questions and to suggest things and to be there for support is such a amazing tool and support system. That's really a wonderful thing that you're doing for women.
Thanks. Women have a hard time asking for help or feeling like they can spend money on themselves, especially for things they think they should be able to do on their own. I mean, everyone knows how to eat healthy. Why can't I do that on my own? And sometimes I go into that thinking I shouldn't have to pay for help. But, when I look back on all the changes that I have made through my life, I have had a coach every step of the way, someone to help me, because when we're not making progress on our own, we're not going to make progress on our own unless we have help. And so I just think having someone to guide and support is crucial in any life change.
I agree. And I would definitely echo what you're saying about asking for help. That it's like you think that you're being vulnerable or you're not strong, but really the biggest strength that a woman could have is to be able to say, I need help and support. I need this in order to get to this. And I think it goes to what you're saying again about the connection between wellness and fearlessness. You've got to overcome those feelings of fear of looking vulnerable or feeling vulnerable, and to accept and take what you need and ask for what you need and ask for that help, because that's the true strength in becoming fearless, is that fearlessness of speaking your mind and speaking for what you need, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And, taking big steps that we're not comfortable with is terrifying. And without some kind of support, we probably won't do it. And so I just always figure if you have places to go, have someone help you, because you will get there faster.
Yes, absolutely. Especially with a big change that you want to make in life, it's really good to start in the beginning, thinking about what resources and what support do I need to make this change.
Yeah.
And
to kind of know where you normally get stuck, and then find someone that's going to help you with that issue. I mean, when I look at my business changes, I've always done that. Okay, I don't know how to do this. I need to find someone who can help me do this. And it's the same with health, whether it's the anti-inflammatory or the gut health or the diabetes or cholesterol, finding someone to help with that specific issue.
do they often come to you with other related health issues other than the just the weight?
Yeah. A lot of times, the doctor has says your cholesterol is way too high. You've got to do something. And they don't know exactly what to do, or they're pre-diabetic, their blood sugar is right at that borderline point. And they say, if you don't do something, you're going to have to go on medication. They don't want that, sometimes it's pain, they have some kind of pain that they assume is from extra weight, but again, it could be from diet. And so, yeah, there's usually
have you seen that a bit? People come to you with physical pain, and then after working with you for a while, the pain is either relieved or gone?
Yes. I had one woman who had, a couple different health issues, but her main thing was pain. And, we have group calls every week. And she was telling the other women who were sharing, they had lost 4 or 5 pounds, whatever. She goes, I have only lost 2 pounds, but I have been able to move more in the last 2 weeks than I have in the last year. And I've been out in my yard for 3 hours, this weekend. And I mean, that's a huge change in lifestyle, to be able to move without pain. And that can, like I said, all come down to, nutrition, and so, yeah, that's always fun to see.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing to know that nutrition has that much of a can make that kind of a change around pain and pain management. I don't think people are realize that. I don't think that's a common understanding about our food, that our food really, what we put in our mouth and put in our bodies affects the way we feel on a physical and emotional basis every single day. You can relate it exactly to what you put on that fork and put in your mouth affects the way your body responds, reacts, feels, the way you feel emotionally, psychologically, energy, all of it, right?
Yeah, and you wouldn't think that, and one of the things that I think was a real eye-opener to me was when I was young, I was having like lots of yeast infections and cold sores and mood swings and all of this stuff. And it came down to sugar, because I had been on antibiotics as a teenager for acne for years. And, that affects our immune system, our gut health, all of that. And so when I did have sugar, it's just like when you make bread and you put some sugar in the yeast and it goes whoosh, that's what our body does. And, I was probably 27 at the time when I kind of put that together. And that has been a huge influence on what I teach and how I see nutrition and health issues. Because like I said, our body is this fine-tuned machine. And if something's out of whack, who knows what it's going to affect,
Yeah, and you're really talking about something that is so fundamental and so foundational, which is the gut health.
Yes.
So do you often start there when you're working with people?
No, because I think that's too overwhelming for people. We start with getting more vegetables in, less junk, more vegetables, more plants overall, vegetables, fruits, fats, whole grains, more plants, less junk, and get their portions right and see how that settles, and then if it's like I had one woman who I've been working with for a while say, I'm going to start watching nightshades just to see what it does to my knee. It's like, go for it, and so, once they become more, I guess, comfortable with just healthier eating, then they're ready to take that next step. But I think to start out and say, okay, your gut's probably all messed up. We got to eliminate this and this and this.
It's too much. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Christie, can you give our audience just a few tips, either related to nutrition, dieting, or working with a coach, any of those?
Sure. I think everybody can benefit by, this is really simple, get ready for this, having less processed food. And people say, what is processed? It's in a box, it's in a package. Having less of that, or less of the drive-through kind of foods, and just having more whole foods, things that you can pick up in the produce section or in the, meat section, or something in its whole form that hasn't been messed with. That's just something simple, that you can start with and then go from there. I work a lot with people getting the right portions because, as we get older, we can't have huge portions of, it's all balanced. It needs to be balanced with your carbohydrates, fat, and proteins. And so we work on correct portion size, but definitely getting a balance in so that you're not leaving out whole food groups because, unless you have some food sensitivity, we need those nutrients. And so, just something that basic can really give someone something tangible to work with without feeling too overwhelmed.
Yeah, that sounds like a good starting point for people.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. And as far as working with a coach, I would say just make sure you have someone who's credible and knows what they're doing, because there's new health coaches popping up all the time because they join a company and then they say, okay, I can help you. And they really have no knowledge in general health and nutrition. But don't be afraid to reach out for help. If you just need support and a little tweaking, because like I said, you will get there so much faster than if you, leave it on your own, because human nature is we'll put it off. If you have someone to help, you don't put it off.
It sounds like, let me know if I'm wrong on this. You're saying that it doesn't necessarily have to be a big commitment. There's all different types of commitments with coaching.
Exactly. Yeah. And
so you might see someone once a week, you might see someone once a month, it depends on what they need and what their goals are, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. And, as people get into the nitty gritty, they may need more help. And then as they, get more discipline and more routine and they have more knowledge, then they may just need a touch base once in a while, to help clarify a few things and to make sure they don't put it in the back of their mind and forget about it, because we do that. We get distracted and do other things, so it just helps them stay, going forward.
Well, thank you so much, Christie, for being here and sharing with us all of this wonderful knowledge and helping us understand the connection between wellness and fearlessness for women. You're such a wonderful example And I just want to acknowledge what you're doing for women around the world, especially women over 40, in helping them to make the transition and make this transformation that they're looking for. And really, you're supporting them in becoming fearless. You're supporting them in becoming healthier, a healthier, kind of happier version of themselves. And that's exactly what the world needs right now. That's what we talk about so much in Over 40 Fearless and Free. So thank you so much for doing that. I applaud what you're doing. And how about sharing, before we go, sharing with the audience how they can get in touch with you, and how they can find out more about you?
Okay, Facebook's probably the best place. I mean, I don't have an active website right now. So just, Christie Ryan Varburg or Christie Ryan Fitness. I have a business page and a personal page. It's probably the best and easiest way to catch me. And I'm usually on Facebook almost all day long. So it's a quick way too.
And I want to point out that she spells Christie, Christie,
Right.
Christie Ryan
Mhm.
Varburg, Varburg, or you can look for her at Christie Ryan Fitness.
Correct.
All
Yep.
right, wonderful. Thank
Well,
you
thank
so much for being here. It was lovely spending time with you. Have a wonderful evening. And everybody else, have a wonderful night and stay fearless, people.
That's right.
Bye.
Bye.